on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So, development in the SBF FTX case. That's Sam Bankman-Fried, socialist financier and crypto fraudster, allegedly.
Yes, please.
He has agreed to be extradited to the United States because I don't think he wants to spend the rest of the next 2 months in a Bahamian prison.
And his ex-girlfriend and his ex-business partner are going to be cooperating with the feds.
Both pleading guilty to offenses similar to those for which Mr. BF no longer, was charged. And of course, this calls to mind an opportunity. Remy, the Weird Al Yankovic of politics, Remy over at Reason Magazine, Reason.com. He's come up with a new wonderful parody song riffing off of Nate Dogg and Warren G's Regulate.
On November 6th, the token's value began to fall, losing more than 80% of its worth in the span of 72 hours.
Looks like we got a situation on our hands. Regulators! Mount up. It was a clear black night. He was sitting at home, looking at a JPEG on his trusty iPhone. It was a rare NFT of a hipster mouse. So he did what you do. He mortgaged his house and he put in a bid. He was getting the itch. He couldn't sit there while he saw those other people get rich. But then the market crashed. The value deflated. This shouldn't be allowed. They should regulate it. He saw a JPEG. It looked in demand. So he mortgaged his house, spent 400 grand. We need to pass new laws to prevent this fate. He wouldn't be so dumb if we regulate. Yeah. What? That's not 100% what I was talking about. I mean, the first part was okay, but it's more like it was a cool, crisp day. He was watching the game. That's when he saw a commercial with folks of acclaim. Crypto returns that'll never default. So he thought what you'd think. That sounds too good to be false. Mortgaged his house, researched the rate, checked out the CEO. Nothing seemed out of place, but when he checked one morning, the value was gone. We should make fraud illegal. This is all just wrong. He did his research and he studied up, then bought invisible tokens this guy just made up. It was a harsh consequence for an honest mistake. His IQ wouldn't be 5 if we regulate. You know, on the message boards for the NFTs, I'm one of the smarter people. So, you do the math. It was a lukewarm noon. He's on Capitol Hill, cause he got margin called and was facing a bill. You don't understand. I've lost all that I had. You need to pass more laws. This is terribly bad. Excuse me. Thanks for letting me join, but isn't part of the issue him? There's a new dog coin? Maybe the underlying tech is one we shouldn't forestall. It's possible one day. Shiba Inu, it's called. If he hadn't been allowed to be a hodler, he wouldn't have the impulse control of a toddler. We could end human nature with a pen stroke today. Why do I have a feeling that they're gonna regulate? You shouldn't prey on folks with financial illiteracy. By the way, have you seen the state lottery? The Powerball's 1 billion, you better not wait. He's gonna make good decisions when we regulate.
Oh, Remy is good.
Fantastic.
He's really good. He's a great composer, and he's got a good voice. He always does an excellent job, and there's a point to it. The point, essentially, caveat emptor. For all of the hand-wringing over SBF and FTX's meltdown, you had very sophisticated investors put a lot of money into Sam Bankman-Fried's hands, and they apparently got frauded. And fraud's already illegal, so I'm sorry, what is the federal government going to do to come in and make it all better? For more on this and, the legislation pending with the Spendocrats on Capitol Hill, please be joined by Christopher Whalen, investment banker, chairman of Whalen Global Advisors, LLC, and author of Ford Men, From Inspiration to Enterprise. He's also the editor for the Institutional Risk Analyst. Chris, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning. I love that song, by the way. It's really great.
Genius, isn't it? So what about the point? Caveat emptor here. That's the real story of FTX.
It is, but remember, there are no sophisticated investors. I'm a member of FINRA, so I'm allowed to say that. And what I mean by that is we all chase the shiny object. It comes from our need to eat. And so greed, avarice, stupidity are all wrapped up in the same enchilada. And it doesn't matter how smart you are, as you were just saying, Dan.
Yeah.
There's some really big chops, some big banks that got into this, and they're all going to get smacked.
Yeah.
Like you said, we don't need new legislation. This is called fraud. It's called unsafe and unsound banking practices, by the way. All the banks that jumped into this, I think they're going to get crucified for not doing KYC on their customers, know your customer, not following anti-money laundering laws, which is the whole point of crypto, right? About money laundering. So we've had this, 7-8 year party, and nobody thought about anything. I love the fact that they're going to try and claw back the political contributions.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, right.
I'm thinking of calling the U.S. trustee and volunteering. I'd like to help them. Oh, yeah.
You just
But do you think?
pour through FEC filings? That's easy enough.
I mean, we have a congressman here got $200,000. He's not going to run for mayor. Do you think he should give the money back too? Like every politician,
Yeah.
most of them were Democrats, a few Republicans.
No, it's not. It's not a matter of choice. The U.S. trustee that's assigned to the bankruptcy has a duty to report to the court, that is to a federal district judge, on the recoveries. And every single dollar that went out of Sam Bankman-Fried's hands, they have to account for.
It's all ill-gotten gains.
Well, it was stolen from customers.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's
pretty
and
straight. It's
the
pretty
recipient has no defense.
Well, that's
keep
the,
in mind.
that's the funny thing. I mean, not the funny thing, but that's the sort of ironic thing about this. All these supposed sophisticated people, everybody's on the FTX side has an MIT degree. Everybody on the institutional investor side are cajillionaires, and yet this is just, as John Ray said, it's just an old-fashioned embezzlement case. I took client funds and used them for my personal expenses. That's it.
Right.
Simple.
The states will lead the charge on this because if you take money, if you solicit funds, and you're guilty of fraud. So that's really where the most of this will happen. And then there's some federal statutes that will come into play. But this is mostly money transfer kind of stuff, and it's governed by state law.
Well, what do you think's going to happen to Sam? I mean, are they going to deny him bail or because Murdoch, he was able to be under home arrest until his trial?
No, I think they're going to probably treat him a little more harshly than that. Because he can't claim that he didn't know. This is a smart individual. He was having a party, and instead of building a website, he stole money. And it was all enabled by the pizzazz of technology, which again shows you that humans are really vulnerable to fraud. They can't not look at the shiny object. They're just like smallmouth bass. It's a smallmouth bass in June, and that shiny object just hit the top of the water, and they go up and they hit it. They can't help it.
That's perfect simile. They're just like smallmouth bass. I'm going to remember that one. All right, I want to get your take on another matter, too. I mean, I know some people are upset about this $1.7 trillion in spend that's pending, but I don't think they've looked at all the good that's going to come from this. For example,
What?
I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, it's only $3.5 million for Michelle Obama Trail in Georgia. I mean, that's a bargain at twice the price. Also, speaking of fish,
did she go hiking?
It never came back.
There's also $65 million allotted for the Pacific coastal salmon recovery, and there's $3 billion to make highways more bee friendly. So I mean,
beef.
So it's not. It's bee as in the insect. Yeah, bee. And of course, as we talked about with Steve Moore yesterday, there is money in there for border security. Now it's border security for Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, and Oman, but it's still border security. So I don't want to pretend like everything in there is waste, Chris.
No, but think of the crypto collapse as the prelude to what we're going to face one day, when nobody cares about rigging American elections and nobody cares about holding the dollar. and they're all doing things elsewhere. And members of Congress aren't going to be able to spend this way. The special role of the dollar will go bye-bye. And everybody will go, oh, me, oh, my, how did this happen? Nancy Pelosi will be in the ground somewhere. And that'll be it. We'll be Argentina with nuclear weapons. It'll be great.
And that will happen. I'm not looking for an AOC-like prediction here, but I mean,
God gave us this gift and said, here, you guys can do what you want. And if we act like idiots, that's the bottom line. If we're enabled to do whatever we want, then we do. Just like the shiny object, remember,
Yeah.
They're going to dispense bags of groceries. It's like the elections in Mexico. They give away bags of groceries on election day. So that's what we do here. We spend money.
There's a lot of SBF among SBF sort of attitude among the ruling class, is what you're saying.
Do you think anybody who received money from this guy asked where the money came from?
Right.
You have this kid who shows up and writes you a check for $10 million.
Right. Right.
But I have news.
Yeah.
You want a piece of news that nobody's reported this week?
Please,
sure.
yes.
We had a major default in the Ginnie Mae market. The government had to come in and buy loans from a busted reverse mortgage lender. The U.S. government now owns a third of that market, and there hasn't been a single story in the financial press. This is a big deal, by the way.
Well, it's because that mortgage billionaire bought the Phoenix. Yeah. Wrigley.
What other ones are there?
Wrigley.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding about that. But
you know
Guaranteed
where
rate, is
Wrigley
it still-
Spearmint Gum came from?
Where?
Do you guys know this story? It was a giveaway from a paint company.
Really?
They came up with chewing gum.
Huh.
A long time ago.
The marvels of a free society. So, wait, I disrupted your point about that default of that reverse mortgage lender. So the implications of that are what?
Well, what it shows you is that the Fed's increase of interest rates this year has been very rapid. And the change in pricing in the bond market is causing problems. We could even see some banks get into big trouble next year because they can't move fast enough to adjust. So, for example, the whole banking system today has arguably got a negative net worth because so many of the bonds that they own from 2020 and 21 are trading in the 70s and the 80s. They can't sell them. They'd take a 20-point loss. Okay, banks don't like to take 20-point losses. So the whole system's become illiquid while our friends in Washington are chasing price stability. This was after they were chasing full employment. You remember that?
Uh-huh.
And this whole law, Humphrey Hawkins, Hubert Humphrey and Augustus Hawkins, is explicitly socialist. But we're such a mess in Washington, we can't deal with it. We need to go back and repeal that law. Because the Fed is like the Death Star now. They go back and forth between full employment and price stability, and the disturbance they cause in the marketplace is huge. And nobody talks about it.
So,
we just assume the machinery will run.
So are you suggesting that we could be looking at some sort of banking crisis in the new year?
Yes, it's starting to happen now. When you have people that will not lend against a piece of paper that's guaranteed by Uncle Sam. Remember, a reverse mortgage for an elderly homeowner is guaranteed by the FHA. And nobody wants it right now.
Oh, that's big news.
There's a lot of reasons for this, but suffice to say that all of this paper that Uncle Jay created in 2021 with very low coupons, and I benefited from this, by the way. I've got a 3% mortgage. That mortgage I have won't be back in the money for refinance for 10 years, if ever. Okay? So all those people that are sitting there with low interest mortgages have no incentive to move.
Right.
They're going to stay right where they are. Nobody's going to be able to buy that house. So you have a liquidity problem in many markets that's been created by the Fed.
And home sales declined for the 10th consecutive month.
That's right.
And
it's not like we're not making mortgages, but we're at a quarter of the level we were 2 years ago. So a lot of people are going to exit this industry this year.
And so the manifestation, though, if big banks start to experience some rockiness, what does that look like? What are the downstream consequences.
Well, what it looks like is that they're not going to be able to lend because they're going to hunker down and they're going to try and survive through this period. They're going to hope that interest rates eventually fall so they can get dug out of there.
And so the predictions about a shallow but perhaps extended recession are too rosy.
Yes, if you get a large bank or non-bank to roll over in the new year, you're going to see stock prices adjust down a lot. That will be wealth destruction on a vast scale. Because if you look at stocks today, despite all the yowling from Wall Street, they're still not that cheap. My banks aren't cheap. Not at all. So we still have a ways to go. People can't quite get their minds around the fact that the last couple of years during COVID was basically abnormal. We're not supposed to see stocks go up 40% in 2 years. But they think it was fine. All the asset gatherers,
Right.
they're like, oh.
Right.
And they keep telling their clients to go back in.
Right. All right. So I'm not buying equities. I'm not buying crypto.
No.
I guess I'm going to keep all my money in Trump trading cards. All right. I got it.
You want some high brass 000 buck and canned goods and water.
We're back to the basics.
Okay, we're back to the survival room.
Basics.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, listen, you would be surprised at how many Americans have full basements. Just trust me.
I used to be one of them.
Yeah, and she will be again. Christopher
yes.
Whalen, investment banker, chairman of Whalen Global Advisors, author of Ford
Merry
Men,
Christmas.
From Inspiration to Enterprise, editor of the Institutional Risk Analyst as well. Chris, thanks as always. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
'Tis the season to think boating. Yes, Freedom Boat Club is the world's original and largest members-only